This morning, I'm just going to take some time and share a story with you. It's a story, or three things we're going to do. We're going to share a story, we're going to hana and haavina, and we're going to watch a video that shares another story. And that's how we're going to close the presentation. But really, this story is about an oceanic people, a community of explorers that left the safety of the shore, and by doing so, discovered the stars. So here's a lecture part. Okay, so some 50,000 years ago, when early Homo sapiens left Africa, one of the first places they settled was Asia. And then the second place they settled was the Southeast Asian continent. Now, the Asian continent was called Sunda, and the Southeast Asian continent, made up of mostly Australia, was called Sahu. Now, there was oceanic waterways that separated these two continents, but the largest waterway was only 40 nautical miles. Yeah? So they basically walked into the Pacific. Now, I can cross 40 nautical miles just by hanging onto a log and floating for 2 days, okay? But these people basically walked into the South Pacific. They could see ahead to the islands that lay out ahead of them. But when they got to the Solomon Islands, that's as far as they could go because the great ocean expanses inhibited them from further exploration. Okay, then we race ahead to about 10,000 years ago. Okay, 10,000 years ago, so 50,000 years ago was a Pleistocene era. 10,000 years ago, a new era set into the world climatic stage, and it was called the Holocene period. And during the Holocene period, the sea level started to rise. So the sea level started to rise, and now these pedestrian explorers was permanently landlocked, yeah, because they had no voyaging technology. So about 7,000 years ago, the Himuru people, which lived in the coastal areas of Shanghai, began to explore the South China Seas. And our direct ancestors was all Chinese. We're all Chinese. So, but really, these people were traders. They traded obsidian flakes, which is a sharp stone used for cutting. They carried their food in lapita pottery, and they were coastal farmers. And so they moved very quickly, yeah, in their 7,000-year history. They moved very quickly, and they visited the islands previously inhabited by the settlers of 50,000 years ago. Then they finally got to an island in the face of the prevailing trade winds. And they went, not only did they go east into the direction of the face of the prevailing trade winds, but they also went west as far as the Philippines and as far as Madagascar, off the eastern coast of Africa. But they finally got to an island in the face of the prevailing trade winds. And there was nobody on the island. And they thought about that. And that they realized was, if they kept on moving in the direction of the prevailing trade winds, they're going to find more and more islands that was undiscovered. So that was a motivation for them for moving to the direction of the prevailing trade winds. But let's be real clear. What separated the movement of these settlers of 7,000 years ago from the pedestrian walkers of 50,000 years ago was this new age of exploration. These people possessed seafaring technology. It was the voyaging canoe, that creative, that innovative seacraft that enabled them to explore and settle the Pacific. So 7,000 years ago, they arrived in the Solomon Islands. Then about 3,000 years ago, they arrived in Tonga, Fiji, and Samoa. And Tonga, Fiji, and Samoa become the gateway into the Polynesian Triangle. This is where all the things that we characteristically indicate Polynesian culture is developed. Then about 1,500 years ago, they migrate. Now, in these 3,000 years of being settled in Samoa, they're constantly honing their skills. They're getting better and better at sailing further. Because as you move east into the Pacific, the islands spread out. So you got to develop the skill. But they didn't have the skill set yet. But in that 1,500-year period, they're developing the skills, and they're pushing further and further. Then they finally get to Tahiti. And then only about 1,200 years ago, as recent as 1,200 years ago, do they settle the farthest margins of the Polynesian Triangle. Hawaii in the north, Easter Island in the southeast, and only 800 years ago did they get to Aotearoa. Now, what were the motivations for sailing east against the prevailing trade winds? Well, one thing we know is that winds go into reversals. Just like we have a Kona season here, they also have a Kona season in the South Pacific. So the winds blowing from east to west would reverse and blow west to east. And so they would get on these wind reversals, and they would sail as far east as possible. And if the wind switched back to an opposite direction, they just sail back home and they wait for the next season. And then in El Nino years, the winds would reverse around and would blow for prolonged periods of time. But really, the most compelling reason why I think people had to go and explore was that we come from a community or society where age has rank. Yeah, it's called primogeniture. That is that the eldest sibling inherits all property. So the only way you could inherit property if you're a younger sibling is you got to go out and discover it. So that was a principal motivation. Now, we know that the Polynesian people, or the oceanic settlers that discovered the Pacific, got as far as South America, yeah? And as to the east, and as far west as Madagascar, the small island off of Africa. Before the spread of the European languages, the Austronesian language ancestors of the people that settled the Pacific was the widest spread language. But we know that they got to South America because the Polynesian sweet potato is a cultigen, a South American cultigen. So they had to go to South America, grab that sweet potato, and re-import it into the Pacific. Okay. But you know, if you understand the history and the culture of the people that settled the Pacific, it's a very dramatic story. You know, there's a story of one navigator who settled Aitutaki. He did it all by himself, but with a canoe load of women. Smart guy, huh? And then what about Aotearoa? Aotearoa was settled by 7 tribes. They say that the tribes take the name of their tribe back to the canoe that they sailed on. And then what about Hawaiians? Yeah? We have the great oral histories of Hawai'iloa, Moikea, La'amaikahiki, Kaha'i. But these are just oral traditions. Yeah? We all know that there was at least a one-way migration, but what real evidence is there of two-way contact? And the best way to verify that there is through the science of archaeology, the study of artifacts, the study of material culture. So about 10 years ago, 2 scientists, 2 researchers, did a study of stone adzes. Okay? And what they did was the stone adzes was collected in the 1930s by Dr. Kenneth Emery, and it came from the Tuamotu Archipelago, which is 200 miles north of Tahiti. Okay. The reason why they studied stone adzes from the Tuamotu Archipelago was that stone adzes are basalt in nature. These are coral atolls, so they know that the stone adzes had to be imported there. So if they applied this technique of plasma mass spectrometry, which can indicate the chemical and mineralogical makeup. So they can take the stone and analyze it back to its eruptive phase. They know exactly where the stone came from. Okay. What they found was this one small nondescript adze had its origins on the island of Kō'olawe. They were able to type it back to Kō'olawe. And in particular, they were able to type it back to this type of stone called Hawaiiite. And Hawaiiite is only found in this lava flow off the southwest coast of Kō'olawe at a point called Ke'alaka'iki. Yeah? Ke'alaka'iki, of course, you know, as being the road to foreign lands or the road to Tahiti. Okay, so regardless of all this evidence, the reason why the Polynesian Voyaging Society was founded was to verify if the tradition of oceanic voyaging was possible. That's all they wanted to prove was possible. And so they built Hōkūle'a to prove that. They also recruited Mau Piailug, a traditional non-instrument navigator, to come and navigate Hōkūle'a because there were no more Polynesian navigators, so they had to go outside of the islands. And they recruited Mau. And the trip was totally successful in 1976. Yeah? Mau was supposed to navigate the canoe from Hawaii to Tahiti, and then he was supposed to turn around and navigate the canoe back from Tahiti to Hawaii. But he got off the canoe in Tahiti, quite frankly, because he was just disgruntled with the project. I mean, quite frankly, the organizers, the researchers, and the Hawaiian crew members, they never had a conversation about the mission of the voyage. I always ask, well, did you guys ever talk? Ever talk about the mission or the purpose? And they never had that conversation. They just threw all these guys together. And quite frankly, after 30 days of being on the ocean, things just broke down. And Mao, just being totally disgusted with the behavior of the canoe, got off the canoe and just wrote a scathing letter and said, "No, come find me. You never find me in my islands." Well, that's when Nainoa Thompson came on board. And he was a crew member on the sail back from Tahiti to Hawaii. But he missed his opportunity to learn from Mao. So he came to the university and he started to re-engineer the art of non-instrument navigation. So he went to academics. Our tradition of wayfinding here in Hawaii is based upon academics because Mao departed. And so Nainoa re-engineered this art, and he had it very well perfected. All he needed to do was to conduct an experiment. But one thing was missing, and it plagued him. It plagued him. And he was grounded, and he understood all of math and science. But there was this spiritual sense of the purpose of navigation. And so, quite frankly, he made contact, and Mao was going to sail to Saipan, and Nainoa went to Saipan, found Mao on the beach, and apologized for the behavior of the crew, and asked Mao to come back to Hawaii to work with him for a year. And they just left on the beach and departed. And about a month later, Nainoa got a phone call and said, "Be at the airport tomorrow, Mao's arriving, pick him up." And so when Mao stepped back into the circle, it kind of re-synergized the navigation. Now, again, it was a totally Western tradition that Nainoa devised, but stepping back and embracing Mao's teachings really helped to indigenize the system. So although what I call our system is truly hybrid, it is based upon an oceanic tradition. Okay, this is the Havina part. This is going to be fun. All right. This is the most ingenious system of orientation. This is a modern hybrid, but systems of orientation or sidereal star compasses are universal. They're the same from the Pacific all the way to Saudi Arabia. Now, some people have been thinking that this is a diffuse system, right, of passing down knowledge. I think, and some people think that it was developed independently, but why would so many communities from the Pacific Ocean all the way to Saudi Arabia have a system of orientation that uses the same stars? Identical in nature. Yeah? So this is where the star compass works. Now, all these island groups from the Pacific to Indonesia to Saudi Arabia all lie within the tropics. And the tropics are really good for this system of orientation. Okay? In that, the stars all arrive in the east, as well as the wind and the oceanic swells all blow from one side of the compass and exit the other side of the compass. So this is how it works. Okay? You stand in the middle of the compass. Now, this lesson was shared with me by Mao and Nainoa, and I think I'm the only person that they ever taught this lesson to. And they took a bird, yeah? They took a cutout of a bird, and they took a cutout of a canoe made out of paper. And they held the bird out in front of me. And they said, the bird flies in the oceanic environment, okay? And the bird is a powerful metaphor because the bird's got an internal compass. The bird is never lost, yeah? And the bird always has a relationship with the environment. Okay, in which way? Well, if the head points in one direction, where does the tail point? The opposite, right? If the right wing points towards one edge of the horizon, where does the left wing point? Towards the opposite side, yeah? So the bird always has a relationship with the environment, okay? Now, the bird doesn't have to see a star ahead of him if he knows what's behind him, if he knows what's supposed to be on the right wing, or if he knows what's supposed to be on the left wing. So as long as he's got one bearing point marked, he can orientate himself, yeah? So the bird has a relationship with the environment the whole time it's out on the ocean. And then they took the canoe, and they put the canoe on the bird, and they told me, the canoe is the bird. The canoe is the bird. Something simple like that, and that was an aha moment. Yeah, the canoe is a bird. Yeah, because think about it. If the head of the bird or the bow of the canoe is pointing in one direction, where's the stern of the canoe pointing? And where's the tail of the bird pointing? In the opposite direction. Yeah? If the right side of the canoe is pointing towards one side of the edge of the horizon, where's the left side of the canoe pointing towards? The opposite edge. So the bird and the canoe is the same thing. Okay, so this is the way the compass works. Okay, we have only two horizons. Hikina, which means to arrive, which also means east, right? So everything arrives in Hikina, okay? It climbs across the sky, crests in the middle of the compass, and then descends and re-enters in the Komohana side of the compass, right? So east is Hikina, meaning to arrive. Komohana, meaning to enter, is west, okay? So east and west, only two horizons in the compass. So if I stand with my back towards east, I naturally face west, Komohana. Okay? If I extend my left hand out away from my body, that's called Hema. If I extend my right hand out away from my body, that's called Akau. Okay? Hema also means south. Akau means north. Okay? Those four names are called houses. We have 32 houses on the compass. Those four names are the only four names that are different. But you see the rest of the houses? We have La on either side of east, Aina, Noyo, Manu, Nalani, Naleo, and Haka. We have the same houses in the west. The east side of the compass mirrors the west side of the compass. Okay? It also mirrors across the quadrants, from the Kola quadrant to the Kona quadrant, from the Holua quadrant to the Malanai quadrant. Okay? So, if the stars are hemispherical, yeah? Celestial bodies are hemispherical, in that if it rises in the southern part of the compass, in the house we call Aina, it's going to climb across the sky, and it's going to set in the southern side of the compass in the same house it rose. So if it rises in Aina in the southern part, it's going to set in Aina in the southern part. Okay? If it rises in Manu, it's going to set in Manu in the southern part if it rose in the southern part. But what about the oceanic swells and the wind? The oceanic swells and the wind move diagonally through the compass, but from house of the same name to the house of the same name. So if a swell was to arrive in the star house we call Aina Ko'olau, yeah, Aina in the Ko'olau quadrant, it's going to move from the Aina in the Ko'olau quadrant, and it's going to move diagonally through the center of the compass, through the canoe, and it's going to exit diagonally opposite in the same house that it arrived in. So if it arrives in Aina Ko'olau, it's going to exit in Aina Kona. Yeah. That's why the compass is such a simple but a very profound tool for orientation, yeah, because it works. Now the names, culturally, are different, but the system is all the same. The system is all the same. And so I'm on a mission to prove that it was a shared system. Okay. Now, we in Hawaii sail north from Hawaii to Tahiti in the south, and we sail underneath the star field. The stars are rising and setting on one side of the canoe. So the stars, if you're sailing to Tahiti, the stars and the ocean swells are going to come from the left side of the canoe, and it's going to exit and re-enter the right side of the canoe. Okay. We can tell latitude real accurately by measuring the altitude of the stars. We do that by waiting for the stars to arrive in meridian, which is the middle part of the sky. And the one star constellation we use for telling the latitude of Hawaii is the Southern Cross, where we take the top star of the Southern Cross and the bottom star of the Southern Cross, and when it's equal, the same height to the horizon, it is, okay, let me move ahead. You are at the latitude of Hawaii. Okay, so that's the Southern Cross, top star and bottom star, down to the horizon, okay? You're at the latitude of Hawaii. And we employ a system called upwind sailing. In other words, we always want to be upwind of the target. So when we get to the latitude of Hawaii, we want to be east of the islands. We wait for this Southern Cross to be upright. We measure the top star to the bottom star to the horizon, and then we're going to turn our canoe downwind. Yeah? So we turn our canoe downwind. The wind is to the east. We point our bow to the west. As long as we keep the bow and the stern pointed towards the houses we call Aina, Aina meaning land, we're going to get blown to land. Okay, and I will And it works. Blows you to land every single time. So, okay, let's roll on a video.
In mid-2013, the Polynesian Voyaging Society and the voyaging canoe Hōkūle'a will embark on a journey around the world. A 46,000-mile, 36-month voyage to 21 countries with 65 currently planned landfalls. We sail for peace, for the love of our planet, and with the desire to leave the children of the world a hopeful, healthy future. To understand Hōkūle'a is to go back in time, to the origin of Polynesia itself.
It goes back 7,000 years ago, where the first really oceanic people came out of China, and it came out of Taiwan. 1,000 years after that, spreading through the Pacific Islands in Micronesia, even in Indonesia. Then you get to Polynesia, this oceanic country bounded by Hawaii in the north and New Zealand in the southwest, and Rapa Nui in the east. 10 million square miles, 600 times more water than this land, biggest country on earth, bigger than Russia. And it was discovered by these extraordinary people. And I say extraordinary because you could argue that they were really the astronauts of our ancestors. They were the greatest explorers on the face of the earth.
Today, as we struggle with the depletion of natural resources, the degradation of our land, heavens and oceans, and conflicts that result from overconsumption, we believe that ancient wisdom can and will inspire contemporary solutions. Since her launching in 1975, Hōkūle'a has sailed 135,000 nautical miles throughout Polynesia to Micronesia, Japan, and the west coast of the continental United States. What began as an effort to disprove critics who doubted Polynesians' ability to sail purposefully, unaided by navigational instruments, has grown into a cultural reawakening, a living commitment to sustainability, and a movement to bring experiential, value-based, community-grounded education to the forefront.
As the Hawaiian culture is re-emerging, rediscovering, re-strengthening, that's not a common story around the world. That is a story that is unique. There are cultures and languages that have been lost every single day across this planet. This voyage intensely is supposed to honor, it's supposed to celebrate, and it's supposed to strengthen all cultures on the planet by respecting them.
Lehua Kamalu is one of the Polynesian Voyaging Society's emerging young navigators.
We wouldn't be here today if our ancestors didn't figure out how to live in balance with their environment and with these islands. There is a lesson in going back to traditional practices and finding some way of bridging the gap between what is modern and ancient and making life livable and healthy and safe.
Which one of these two?
Lani Murphy has been sailing on Hōkūle'a since 1997 and is one of very few crew members who will sail the entire worldwide voyage.
This is a critical time for us. A lot of people are realizing that because of things that we've done to the planet, to our oceans, the land in the past, that just affects our ability to have oxygen to breathe. And so it's not limited to somebody in Hawaii. It affects everybody that breathes. Along with building better relationships with people around the world who have the same desire to take care of our planet, we're part of a movement to have leaders, peace leaders, really, with the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu, to recognize that there is something special about Hōkūle'a, special to us, and I think it does bring that kind of worldwide attention that we are on the right path and we are something that can carry that message of peace around the world.
The investment is not an investment for a monetary reward at the end. You're not going to cash in on this and say, all right, now I have this much money. It's an investment in the earth. It's an investment in the future. It's an investment in keeping traditions and resources and knowledge and learning alive for the future generations.
If you come from the lens of what the canoe is supposed to do, it will do nothing if we're tied to the dock. We're not going to change the world, but we're going to go and build a network of people around the earth who are going to change it. And our job is to help them be successful.
Well, I want to thank each and every one of you. Again, I'm going to join Pucky and we're going to enjoy the rest of the speakers for the rest of the afternoon. So thank you very much.